What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Coffee Talk, the talk after the coffee tasting. This morning we tried the Bolivia Sol de la Mañana. It has notes of orange blossom, milk chocolate, and a caramely sweetness. We tried it three different ways. We tried it on the pour over, the French press, and the Chemex. This morning my favorite brew method was the French press, just because we got a lot more of those intense milk chocolate bitters. And then because of the contrast, the bitters, when it cleared the palate, it made that caramely sweetness that much more sweeter. And those are the pretty much the flavor profiles that I look for when I drink a good cup of coffee. Is really good milk chocolate bitters with a caramely sweetness after mouthfeel. So this one was a really good cup of coffee. If you guys didn't get a chance to watch today's live stream, there should be a link in the list of videos down below that'll take you to the link of today's coffee tasting. And then if you guys haven't had a chance to hit that like and subscribe button, please hit that like and subscribe button down below. That really helps me make this channel that much better and allows me to create more content for you guys. And that way we can learn a little bit more about coffee. And if you guys are just here to say hi, say what's up in chat, I'd love to know, just have that engagement with my viewers and stuff like that. Super awesome. The fact that you guys are here just shows how passionate you guys are about coffee, just like I am. And it's really cool to be able to share that passion for coffee. And then even if you don't have that passion for coffee, if I can share my passion and pass my passion on for coffee to you, that's even better, because not a lot of us know how much work and dedication goes into making a good cup of coffee and how it affects the environment and the economy of the coffee growers. How's it going?
Good.
Did you want to try some coffee?
I'd be sick on my way.
Especially while riding a bike, for sure.
Smells good.
Yes, sir. So, if you guys have any specific questions on coffee, if you guys just have any kind of methods that you guys want to see happen on this channel, go ahead and throw it down in the chat. I'd really love to have that feedback. Explore a little bit more coffee myself. Maybe there's a brewing method I have not tried myself, or maybe even a blend of coffee or a coffee roasting company that I have never explored. Throw that down in the chat. I'm always learning and always willing to explore and learn new coffee. So, super awesome. And then for those of you guys who are here in the coffee chat, welcome. Good morning. I hope your coffee is just as delicious as mine is, because I know mine is really good. So if you guys are joining me for the coffee talk and you've never actually joined me for a coffee tasting, the coffee tastings are dedicated to learning about the history and culture of the farmers and learning about the dedication that it goes into making a single bag of coffee. So a lot of us, when we drink our coffee, we don't realize how much work goes into the coffee, so we don't have that much appreciation for it. It's just a cup of coffee. But as we learn the story of the farmers and the history and how much work and how much it affects the economy and the environment of the farmers, we can have that much more appreciation for the cup of coffee that we hold in our hands. And it actually becomes that much more valuable too, because the fact that we're able to enjoy a cup of coffee so cheaply is amazing, because of how much work that actually goes into the cup of coffee. It's astounding to me that by the time it reaches our hands, that it's still as cheap as it is, being $15 a pound of coffee. And so, knowing the story behind the coffee can help you better appreciate the amount of work that goes into it. And it's another way for us to pay tribute to the farmers. Because obviously, when we pay for our coffee, we're helping the farmers create a sustainable economy. But at the same time, they're not getting the proper dues that they're owed, because, that's only money. Money only goes so far. And so, by properly appreciating and paying true tribute to the people who grow this coffee, we learn their story and the amount of work that goes into each cup of coffee, and learning the history of this area and like how coffee made its way to that part of the world, how or why farmers transitioned from the crops that they were growing before to coffee, and how it helped evolve the economy, and how some of those changes ended up being a better change for the farmers, even though when it first started to happen, it looked like a negative outlook, where in certain parts of Latin America where you have the indigo dye, and you know how you have a lot of farmers that are not able to sell their indigo, and because of synthetic blues being made in Europe, and so a lot of farmers started missing out on sales because a lot of their cash crops were indigo. And so a lot of those farmers ended up selling or switching over to coffee, but you have to think about like the transition process of the uncertainty of it all. You're going into a world where coffee isn't a main staple yet. It's still migrating through your part of the world, and it's still uh, not as widely demanded as it is today. And so back then, transitioning from an indigo dye to a coffee dye could have been a very scary transition. You didn't know if you were going into a stable transition. You didn't know if coffee was going to be a strong crop back then. But as they persevered and they continued to grow coffee, it ended up paying out, and the fact that it is more sustainable to grow, and that the demand of coffee is there. So that's what's really cool about learning the stories, is you really get to learn about not just what they do to grow the coffee, but what had to happen in order for that area to even think about growing coffee, or even get into growing coffee in that particular region of the world. And with a lot of Latin American coffees, you do have the reason for switching over to coffee being because farmers didn't have an option to continue growing what they were currently growing. And you even see that in like Hawaii, where a lot of farmers, they transitioned over from growing sugar to growing coffee. And the reason why is because sugar is a very unsustainable crop. It's a dirty crop, which means you have to burn the crop. I think it's every couple of years. I don't know exactly the true process of growing sugar, but I know that it's not a very sustainable crop, and it's not green friendly. And so by switching over to coffee, not only are you having a more sustainable harvest, but you're having a greener harvest, and a more more consistent as well, because you don't have that burning period where you have to burn the crop and you have to wait for it to regrow. With coffee, it's more consistent, more stable, it's greener for the environment. And so for making the switch from sugar to coffee in Hawaii was a major step for a lot of farmers over there, especially with what was going on in the world in that time, that part of the world at that time, because you recently have the aftermath of World War II and Hawaii being devastated by the attacks on Pearl Harbor. So you have Hawaii's economy that pretty much tanked after World War II. And you have a lot of farmers switching over from sugar to coffee, and then even some farmers switching from pineapple to coffee. And so now coffee and pineapples being one of the major exports of Hawaii versus sugar and pineapple. And so the important part about it is that coffee has revitalized Hawaii's economy. It's helped them rebound from the devastation that Pearl Harbor was on the community of Hawaii. And just the fact that they transitioned from sugar crops to coffee crops helped them make that rebound that much faster, because if they would have stayed with their sugar crops, with the process of having to burn their crops every couple of years, it's just not economically friendly and environmentally friendly. So having that more environmentally friendly crops made it more sustainable for the coffee growers to create that economical strength for the community of Hawaii. And so that's just another example on how coffee has a major role on not just the people of the community, but the economy of the community and the environment of the community, like the wildlife and all that other stuff. And so coffee has changed the farming industry, and not just coffee, but in other industries as well when it comes to agriculture. And it's really cool to learn those stories. And that's what this channel is all about. For those of you guys who have never actually tuned into a full live stream, is we really like to learn stories. Each coffee tasting is dedicated to learning its own story so that we can better appreciate each individual cup and pay tribute to the growers. That's another main factor to this as well, is paying tribute to the people who grow our coffee, because by learning their stories and having it written down on paper and even being put into a video immortalizes that story and immortalizes them, and their story is told forever. How's it going? And that's probably one of the biggest tributes you could ever pay to someone, is to have them immortalized and represented in the things that they do in their life, especially if it's their passions and what they dedicate themselves to. And in this case, we have Pedro Rodriguez, who has dedicated himself to the Sol de la Mañana initiative that is dedicated to learning about agricultural science and sharing that information with the neighboring community, and trying to grow this initiative to encapsulate the entire community so that he can help the community evolve and grow, create a more sustainable and economically friendly environment. All through coffee. It's just through coffee. And it doesn't have to be just through coffee either. We could take this story of helping our community and our environment evolve, and we could take that story and we can apply that to other things in life. We can help other people grow. We can give back to other people in our own ways. But we can use these stories of coffee, these farmers who have taken the initiative to embrace their community and help them grow and evolve and help them grow. And we can take that and we can help our own communities grow. And we all have our own resources and how we can do that. Say it's whether or not you volunteer at a shelter, a pet shelter, a homeless shelter, or if you're partake in a community, a farmers market where you grow fruit and you sell to your own community, providing a more sustainable and greener economy where we're giving back to our own community versus giving it out to the mass corporations. Help fuel the local community before, if you have the chance, versus feeding the big corporations. That's another thing that we can take inspiration of, because by doing that, especially at the farmers market, you're actually helping individual families create a sustainable livelihood if they choose to try and make a livelihood by supplying edible goods or specialty goods at a farmer's market. So that's another way we can give back to the community as well. So there's tons of different ways that you can pay tribute, and even if it's helping people learn, like volunteering at like a help what is it called when you I'm lost for words right now for the actual word I'm looking for. But say like you volunteer to help people study for class and stuff like that. Almost similar to what I'm doing here, where my coffee tastings are an educational coffee tasting. I give back to the community by telling the stories of the farmers, by making sure that those stories get told, and by sharing my dedication for the coffee story with you guys. And so if you guys can find something that you guys can give back to the community and help people around you grow and learn and better appreciate the things around them, I definitely encourage you to do so. Tutor, that's the word I was looking for. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word, but a tutor. So you can volunteer to be a tutor or volunteer at the local library and stuff like that. Just any way you can give back to the community, that's super awesome. And then you just take these coffees as a dedication to, you know, think of Pedro Rodriguez and how he gives back to his community, and use that as inspiration for yourselves to continue to give back to your community. And maybe you can even start your own initiative and give back to the community and help your community join that initiative, and then have your own inspiration to share and pass on to others. Super cool. James Giannotti, what's going on? Yeah, so we have the 3 brewing methods. We have a pour over, French press, and the Chemex. So the Chemex is a brewing method that not a lot of people are familiar with. It is a triple paper filter. It's very similar to the pour over, but the only difference is the grind setting, the amount of water, and then the triple paper filter. So with the grind setting, we're getting a slightly coarser grind than the paper filter, so there's going to be less surface area for the water to make contact with. And then also the triple paper filter is going to absorb more of those oils. So we're going to get less oils in the cup of coffee. So it's going to be a cleaner cup of coffee. We're going to get a balanced cup of coffee still with the Chemex, but it's going to be much more smoother than you would with the French press. So that's what makes it different. And so with the Chemex, it's also a slower process as well. Just because of that triple paper filter, it's going to allow the water to pass through more slowly. So it's going to be a longer brew process, but you're going to get a smoother flavor. So that's what the Chemex is. And the different brew processes really bring out different flavors. And that's why I brew my coffee 3 different ways, so I can explore the different flavor notes and decide what brew method I like the most for that particular cup of coffee. I generally choose the French press over the Chemex, or the Chemex over the pour over, but the pour over is generally the last one I like to choose, just because the pour over brings out more of those bright citrusy notes or the bright floral notes, and those are the notes that I tend to lean away from, just because I like those more bitter flavors like the milk chocolate or the dark chocolates with the caramely sweetness. So with my favorite brew methods, it's definitely the Chemex and the French press. And if I had to choose one over the other, it's definitely the French press, but that also depends on the blend of coffee that I'm brewing as well. So the different notes that the coffee has is going to impact the flavor, or impact my preferential brew process. So the oils in the coffee actually bring out more of the citrus flavors, so more of the bright floral flavors. So you want the sediments if you're going to go for more of the bitter flavors, and that's why I actually like the French presses, because we're getting more sediments. The oils is going to bring out those bright citrusy notes. So with the pour over, the regular pour over, we're going to, even though we get a lot more oils in the French press, the amount of sediments in the French press is going to overpower the oils, so we taste more bitters. But in the pour over, we're pretty much filtering out all of the sediments. Some sediments make its way through the pour over, but we're primarily getting those oils in the pour over. We're getting a lot more oils in the pour over than we are sediment. And because we're getting more oils than sediment in a pour over coffee, we're getting those bright citrusy floral notes. And so that's why that impacts that flavor. With the Chemex is very similar, except because the triple paper filter absorbs more oils. And so we're still getting the very light sediment like we would in the pour over, but we're also getting very light oils as well. So because we're reducing the amount of oils in the cup of coffee, it's going to be a very clean cup of coffee. It's a very light cup. It's not going to be very heavy on the tongue. And so the flavors are going to be very mellow. But it's also going to be balanced as well, because the oils to sediment ratio is a little bit more balanced. We're going to taste more of those milk chocolate bitters. While in the pour over, we have a lot more oils than sediment. So we're tasting a lot more of those citrusy notes. And it's the same thing in the French press, where the French press we're getting a lot of sediments and a lot of oils, but because of the balance between the two, we're getting a more balanced cup of coffee. With the pour over, we're getting a more oil heavy cup of coffee, bringing out those citrusy, more floral notes. So that's why I tend to lean more towards the Chemex and the French press, is because I like the bitter milk chocolate notes. That's what I tend to drink for. But if you're more of a tea drinker, you definitely want to go for more of a pour over cup of coffee because it brings out those floral citrusy notes. And that's what this channel's pretty much all about too, is learning about the different brew processes and learning about what makes them different and what we do different for each brew processes. So each different process gets a different amount of grinds, a different amount of a different grind setting, and a different amount of water. So with the pour over, we're doing pretty much a single serving cup of coffee. With the Chemex, we're pretty much doing like a 2 servings of small cups of coffee or 1 large cup of coffee. And with the French press, we're pretty much doing around 3 cups of regular, 2.5 cups of coffee. And so each of them have a different serving size. But if you were to serve yourself a single cup of coffee from each, they would have the same amount of caffeine, just different flavors. And so each brew process, you're going to get around the same amount of caffeine. There might be a little bit different depending on the brew process, but they're going to be fairly the same unless you drink the entire portion of what you brew. So while this is only 1 serving, this is going to be 2.5, and this is going to be 2. So if you drink the entire Chemex, it's going to be like drinking 2 pour-overs, thus more coffee. But if you were to serve yourself 1 cup from the Chemex, you're pretty much getting the same amount of coffee, just a different flavor. So the different brew processes don't impact the amount of caffeine too much. It's all about flavor and how it's served. If anyone else has any questions about the coffee, or if you guys have any coffee that you guys really like, I'd love for you guys to throw that down in the chat. Super awesome. I'd love to engage with the viewers and just learn a little bit about you guys and maybe learn what makes your coffee your favorite coffee. Because we all have different flavor cups of coffee that we really like, and then we all have different flavor notes that we look for in coffee. So for me, I like those bitter milk chocolates with the caramely sweetness, which makes Bolivia Sol de la Mañana pretty much a perfect cup for me. And then the story is really cool. Just being able to give back to the community, super awesome. And then just taking these stories as inspiration to help give back to your own community, um, just makes it that much more awesome. Just not just listening to the story, but taking that story with you, carrying it with you, and letting that story inspire you to help you influence some of the actions that you take yourself. And so that's something that I've been trying to learn to do myself, is act upon things that inspire me and try to inspire others. And so that's what I kind of do with these coffee tastings too, is if I can inspire someone to be as passionate about coffee and learn about the coffee stories, especially if they never had that passion for coffee, then I've really done what I've said, excuse me, what I've set out to do, is to just inspire other people through coffee and to make them want to learn about the culture, not just because they want to learn it, but because they're really passionate about learning the stories of the actual farmers and helping make their cup of coffee mean that much more. Super cool how much value we can bring to a cup of coffee just by learning the stories of the farmers. So my all-time favorite blend of coffee is Shade Grown Mexico. Shade Grown Mexico is going to be very similar to this one, um, in terms of flavor profile, because the Shade Grown Mexico has the milk chocolate notes with the caramely sweetness, but it's unavailable now, so they don't serve it anymore. So this is probably the closest coffee that I'm going to be able to get to Shade Grown Mexico. So I probably have to say that Bolivia Sol de la Mañana is actually one of my favorite blends so far, just because of how close it is to one of my actual favorite blends. Um, but yeah, so I I'll add things to my cup of coffee if I'm just trying to just casually drink a cup of coffee. But if I'm drinking a cup of coffee for breakfast or in the morning, I like to drink my cup of coffee black, just because I like to taste the flavor notes, and the brew process is going to impact how well that flavor of the coffee tastes all by itself. Because there are some coffees that I just cannot do black, and a lot of those coffees end up being like Southeast Asian coffees or Indonesian coffees, say like Sumatra or East Timor or Papua New Guinea. A lot of those coffees end up having super intense roasty notes. So we don't have like any kind of milk chocolate sweetness in there. Sometimes we get a little bit of floral flavors in there, but mainly with that particular part of the world, we get a lot of roasty, bitter notes with like spices and florals. And with those, we get a lot of bitter mouthfeels. And so, like the roasty notes can be bitter, the floral notes can be bitter, and so we don't get a lot of room for bright citrusy sweetness notes or anything like that. So with those types of coffees, especially like Sumatra, I don't like to drink black just because they're a little bit too intense for me in terms of flavor. So like those ones I would want to add cream. I wouldn't have to, but that's why I drink the specific coffee that I drink at home, is because I know that I can brew it and not have to add any sweetener or cream to it to make it taste good to me. So making sure that if you want to drink your coffee black and you don't want to add anything to it, it's important to find a coffee that you can drink black that has the flavor notes that you actually enjoy. Because a lot of people, and that's another thing too with coffee, is people will base their opinions on a coffee company based off of one blend of coffee. And a lot of people judge Starbucks coffee based off the Pike Place roast. And with Pike's Place, it's a very roasty coffee. It's got a roasty flavor. And a lot of people attribute it to a burned flavor, and that's because that's the flavor profile that it's going for. It's going for a roasty, semi-burned flavor. It's not supposed to taste too burned, but those are the flavor notes that it leans towards, a roasty, burned flavor, and that's because of the roasting process. And so those are the notes that that particular blend goes for, and it's because it's going for a more traditional Italian espresso style coffee. So you get those roasty notes. But a lot of people aren't a big fan of the full roasty, intense cup of coffee, so they attribute Starbucks as a coffee that's burned flavor. Well, if you were to try some of the other coffees, like if you were to do like the blonde coffee, which is a Latin American and Ethiopia blend, or if you were to do like some of the other dark blends, like the Verona, we have a more of a blend coffee where we have more of like the dark chocolate, milk chocolate blend notes in there versus just the roasty notes. You're gonna get more of a milk chocolate bitter mouthfeel than that burned roasty flavor that you do in the Pike Place. So, and it's the same thing with Folgers as well. A lot of people attribute to Folgers as being weak water coffee, but the more commonly used version of Folgers is the weaker blends, and so you don't really get to try the more intense blends that that company has to offer. And because you never really get to experience those blends that that company has to offer, you associate it with that one blend that you get at every, say, IHOP or uh, 7-Eleven. And so just by only exposing yourself to that one blend of coffee within that particular brand, allowing it to affect your total opinion of that entire coffee company is technically not right, because you have to explore the coffee as a whole to really be able to have a true opinion on that person's coffee that they offer. So you might not like the Pike Place, but you might like the Bolivia Sol de la Mañana, or you might not like either, but you really like the Sumatra. But you would never know that unless you tried the Sumatra or you tried the Bolivia. And so if you subject yourself to just the offering of the day, you're going to base your opinion on that particular cup of coffee, and just that cup of coffee. And that cup of coffee that you're judging your opinion on just might not be the flavors that you like. And so by exploring coffee and learning about the different coffees, we can help find the flavors that we like. And that way we can better enjoy the cup of coffee that we drink. We don't have to drink our cup of coffee and make faces because it's too bitter or too citrusy or too florally. Tastes too much like an IPA. And so that's why it's so important to explore different coffees, because even though you might not like that particular public offering that's an everyday offering, you might like another blend just because the particular blend that they serve every day is too bold and too roasty. And so that's why it's important to explore coffee. How's it going, you guys? This is probably one of the best coffee talks that I've had so far. A lot of great questions coming through, so thank you, James, for all the excellent questions, helping me fill this content up. But if anyone else has any questions about coffee, or if you have any insight or input that you guys would like to share, throw that down in the chat. I'd love to learn. I'd love to share. So don't be afraid, even if it's just to say hi, what's up in chat. Throw that down in the chat. Love to get to know the people who share the same passion for coffee as I do. We come together as a community, learn each other's names, and then grow. Share this channel with someone who you think might love coffee just as much as you, or if you know someone who is just as passionate about coffee as we are, share this channel. We can help grow this channel, create more content, learn more stories, and just create a really strong, passionate community of coffee lovers who want to learn about the community of coffee and grow around it. So, super cool. Thanks again, James, for all the questions. I'm more than happy to answer any more, and super awesome to engage with you guys. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining in today's coffee talk. Again, if you have not had a chance to check out my coffee tastings, there's a list of videos down below that'll give you a list of all my coffee tastings. And if you missed today's coffee tasting, that'll also be in that list down below. If you haven't had a chance, hit that like and subscribe button. That way you won't miss any coffee tastings in the future. And hitting that like button will allow me to create more content and create more videos for you guys so that we can learn and grow even more. So thanks again everyone for joining. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope your guys' coffee was just as delicious as mine was. And I hope you guys enjoyed today's Bolivia Sol de la Mañana lesson. Have a great day. I will see you guys this Friday as we explore a new coffee. It is going to be I forget what other coffee we got. We got the Bolivia Sol de la Mañana, the Colombia Finca Reserva, which I did last week, and then Rwanda Hingakawa. So we're going to be doing Rwanda this Friday. So join us this Friday as we explore a coffee that's dedicated to women empowerment. So thanks everyone for joining me in today's coffee tasting and today's coffee talk. I will see you guys this Friday. Have a great day. Thank you so much.